how many movies have you watched this year? I know it's a crazy number.
I think I'm in the 180s right now this year. It's about 3 a week, sometimes 4 a week, depending on the week.
That's a lot of movies. Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance in about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. We've reached the end of the year, and so for me, what that means is we're all done. We're checking out. Don't try to teach me anything. So we're not talking about money today. I don't want to learn anything. So we've been in the year of great movies, much like last year, and it's kind of turned into like a little bit of an annual tradition here, where we do a little bit of recap of some of the favorite movies that we watched this year. And the person who I had join me last time, one of my favorite movie critics, love watching her reviews all the time on Instagram and TikTok. Joined here today by Alexis Gentry. She is the editor over at Trashwire and co-chair of the Denver Film Critics Society. So Alexis, welcome back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me back.
I appreciate it. We actually talked about movies in the summer. It was episode 457 where we talked about our categories that we normally do for some of our favorite movies. And the 2 categories I wanted to recap on is On the Lookout. This is movies that we're looking forward to. Like, they haven't come out yet, but we're excited to watch them. I want you to go first because your movie that you listed was Pushpa 2. And I saw you do a review recently about this.
Yes. Well, so this was a movie that I had been anticipating. I love the first Pushpa movie, is like one of my favorite Telugu films of all time. I love it so much. There was like, there's going to be a sequel. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be more. I was eagerly anticipating this movie, and it came out. I literally took the day off work to go watch it in IMAX at like 11 a.m. because I was like, we never get like Indian movies in IMAX here. So I was like, I am doing this like first showing, first day. It was such an amazing experience, especially in IMAX. The music to me is one of my favorite parts of Indian cinema, particularly Telugu cinema. So seeing that in like an IMAX environment where you have that great sound was fantastic. So this is a movie that's like 3.5 hours long, and it did not feel 3.5 hours long to me at all. Meanwhile, I'll watch like a Hollywood movie that's 2.5 hours long, and I'm like, the whole time. So
you take a little peek at your phone. What? How long have we been in there?
For sure. So I was like, I loved it. I don't think it's like a perfect movie, but I think as far as being like an entertaining movie, there was not 2 seconds of that movie where I was not thoroughly entertained. So I was anticipating it, and it lived up to expectations.
Okay, I love to hear that because, you know, you never know. Especially when you're like excited for something, it could go wrong quick.
For sure.
So.
Yes.
My movie that I listed was Kinds of Kindness, and this came off of the hype of me watching
Poor Things.
Thank you, Poor Things. I was about to say I love this movie, couldn't even remember the title. Poor Things, which I loved last year, and I was like, it's same director, and pretty much like a lot of the actors from that movie are in this. And I went in completely blind, and I think I messaged you after I saw this movie. I was in San Francisco, and I was like, I just saw this movie, and it was so weird. I had no idea. I went in blind. I didn't know it was like 3 separate like short stories, almost like an anthology style, because it's just the same actors who just move them around in these different movies. I was watching the first one. I was like, is this ending? I've never been here that long. And they jump into the next one. And I'll say interesting storytelling. Not all 3 are equal. There was one that I liked the most. I don't remember at this point which one it was, but there was one I really liked, one I thought was okay, and then one I was like, I could have done without that one. But it was long because there's 3 stories. My body wasn't prepared to be there for like 2.5 hours. I thought I was going to be there for like, maybe 2 at most. Overall, I think it was fun, weird, interesting, makes you think a little bit. So I was a positive overall.
Nice. Yeah, my confession is I still haven't seen that movie. I need to see it. Listening to the reactions of my friends has been really interesting. I have some friends who were like, it was really weird in a way that I loved. I have other friends who were like, it made me throw up. I have other friends who are like, I loved, the first 2 stories, but the third one I hated. And so I'm like, damn, this has got some really interesting reactions, and it makes me really want to check it out.
I think it's one you're okay watching at home. This wasn't like a must see in the theater situation.
Totally. Feels like the kind of thing where it's good to like maybe take a little break part of the way through.
That'd be perfect. Watch each of those individual stories one at a time.
Emotionally prepare before you jump into the next one.
Because you're never prepared for what the next one's going to be because they're nothing alike. Okay, so before we get into our top 3, we had one more category I wanted to go over because I was trying to think about where to place this. But I was like, I think now, kind of just set the tone for what we kind of were feeling back in the summer. So we had a category, it was best so far in 2024. You had 2 movies. You had Dune Part 2 and Kalki 2898 AD. Now, you don't have to spoil for me if it's in your top 3, but I want that to just be in your mind. And how do you feel? Do you still feel strongly about those 2 movies?
I do. I feel like summer especially is a time when you like want like a big blockbuster thing. And both of those movies I feel like deliver in that way. Like different movies for sure, but weirdly kind of similar vibes, post-apocalyptic kind of thing. everything.
Yeah.
So like similar in that sense, but also just big scale sort of epic type of movies. I feel like summer is like the perfect time for that. Those worked in the summer, and I think they still work for me.
Ooh, okay. All right. That's good to hear. I had Last Stop in Yuma County. Honestly, I don't even know when I watched this movie, but it feels like very early in the year I watched this, and I loved it. I think it caught me by surprise because I knew nothing about it. I like to go into movies so blind, like so just like I am unaware of anything about these movies. And I think it kind of helps with the experience. And so this one, it's fading in my memory a little bit, but still a good movie. So I'm not gonna say what's happening now. Let's just jump into our top three before I accidentally say anything else about what's in my top three. All right, we're going in reverse order. 3, 2, 1. So we're starting off with what is number 3 on our favorite movie of the list year. And also, just like we kind of talked about this before, it's so hard to rank these movies, right?
Oh,
like,
completely.
because you like movies for different reasons. So this is our best attempt at putting these in some type of order that will probably shift in the next like 5 minutes after we've already ended this recording. But
Definitely.
giving everyone that caveat as we jump into what is your number 3 pick for your favorite movie of the year.
This is like so hard because I have a list now of like maybe 20 movies that I think could all be in the top 3. But for my number 3, I think I'm going to go with Sing Sing.
Oh, yes.
I just loved that movie so much from the first frame to the last like second of the credits. I was so hooked into it. The performances are remarkable. It's such a moving story. It's one of those movies where I watched it, I immediately was just so emotionally drawn in, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant film, and I hope that it gets award love. I want Coleman Domingo to get an Academy Award because I'm like, he's so good.
Oh, he is so good. Like that one is very close to being in my top 3 because it was hard. It was hard to push things out of there. I think I might have said it like number 5 because it is so well done. And I think the thing that kind of like really like hit me was at the end. Well, this is not a spoiler, but at the end they show you like, you know, obviously the cast, right? And so many of the actors were the people, they were portraying themselves. These were the people in this prison who were in this theater program playing themselves. And I was like, their acting was so good. I just thought they just hired, I thought maybe one person might be, but it was like 5 or 6. I was probably more than that. I was blown away by that movie.
Yeah, that entire cast. I need them to like invent new award categories just so that everyone in the cast can get an award, because I feel like they were all phenomenal. Like every single person there, just remarkable, incredible performances all around.
Yeah, no, great pick. I love that movie. For me, and thankfully, Alexis gave me the idea of giving me like she gave me a little bit of a break here. So you can do an honorable mention because I was struggling with this number 3 pick. So my honorable mention, which I mean, it could easily just take the number 3 spot. I really loved It's What's Inside. It was on Netflix. It was just like this really, it went places I didn't expect it to. It's, I don't know, without spoiling it, they're kind of like, you know, it's like a body swapping kind of movie. And like this friend group, and they're like learning a little bit too much about each other, and they're dealing with all their issues. It's so good. So I love my honorable mention. Love that movie. But number 3, I left The Last Stop in Yuma County there in my top 3. So it moved down a little bit, but it was just such a good like little suspense. I don't know. I guess it's suspense. I guess is where you would put it. Suspense, maybe a thriller. I don't know if you would put it. It's somewhere in that category. But it's just such a interesting movie, such a fun ride. Something I saw it very, very early in the year, and I just kind of stuck with me. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. And it's still hanging on there in my top 3.
It's a good one. I feel like that's a good example of a very sort of like economic storytelling. Like you can tell it did not cost a lot of money. They didn't have a huge budget. It's all like basically one location, and they just focus on the characters and the story, and it does a really good job of when you see a movie that you're like, wow, this didn't cost $200 million and it's well done. Like, yes. I think that's worth noting.
Exactly. Like you do not need to spend every dollar possible on a movie for it to be good. You can have an interesting story and some good actors, and you got enough to go with there.
Absolutely.
All right. What is your number 2 pick?
My number 2 is The Substance. I just love this movie. Like I watched it in a press screening, and then I was like, I need to see this again. I just think it's fantastic. I did a podcast episode with my friend KT all about it, where we were it's like the whole episode is basically us going, right? I know, right? Right? Like, because it's like every point that this movie made was just something where it hits so hard. Like it's fantastic. It's funny in like really subversive ways. It's meaningful. It's so creative in terms of like really gross special effects that are like amazingly crafted. I'm obsessed with The Substance. I think it's fantastic. It's a revolutionary film in terms of amazing sort of body horror this year.
Okay, this is one that I didn't get to, and I've heard so many good things about it. I'll probably try to squeeze it in before the end of the year. And I didn't mention, I slacked off this year. I think I was at like 98 movies or something last year. I got to 49. I couldn't even get to a nice round 50. So there's several movies, but beyond several movies that I really want to watch. And this is one of the ones there, The Substance, because I've heard nothing but good things about that movie.
It's great. I completely love it.
Ooh, okay, number 2 for me. This one caught me by surprise. I had heard nothing about this movie. Came across it randomly. I think it's also on Netflix, just like It's What's Inside, which Netflix kind of is having a good year for movies popping up on their service. It's called The Missing, and it's out of the Philippines, and it's animated, but it's a rotoscope style. It's kind of like where
cool.
they film it, but then they like kind of like draw over the top of it with like a really interesting kind of like, I don't know, kind of looks comic-y, but not really, and the lines kind of shift a little bit, art style. I think it's one of the first animated movies out of the Philippines to be nominated for, I want to say, an Oscar. I think it was. It didn't release here until this year, but I think it came out last year. I think is how it worked. I could be getting this all wrong. I read the Wikipedia. I've probably forgotten half the details. But it's just really interesting story of, I can't really tell you anything about it because it will spoil it, and that's what was the most powerful thing about the way this story was told, because it's not what you think is happening, essentially, which is kind of a spoiler. I shouldn't have even said that. But anyways, it's just such great storytelling. It's not in English. It's all in subtitles. Kind of going back to our conversation we had earlier in the year about appreciating movies and being okay with subtitles that are not, movies that aren't in English are okay. And this is great storytelling. I spoke to a friend about this because I assumed it was in Tagalog, and they were like, no, it's not. It's in another dialect, because they were like, I can't understand this, so it's a completely different dialect. But it is such great storytelling, a very powerful story. A movie. It's one of those movies I turned it off and I was just like sitting there like, man, huh?
Totally.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go lay down. I'm done.
Well, that sounds great. Yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I'm very into creative animation and foreign films for sure. So that sounds like something I would love to check out.
Yeah, definitely recommend it. Now we're on to our number 1 pick, the big one, the one that Alexis, everyone's gonna be judging you for years based on what's in this number 1 spot. I'm just joking. But what was your favorite movie of 2024?
Well, my favorite movie of the year, and I thought this the minute I saw it, and I was like, we'll see if anything beats this, and so far nothing has, but my favorite movie of the year was Anora. I just loved this movie. I loved every second of this movie. There's a sequence in here that's so funny. The sort of ending of this movie packs such a punch. It was a movie that I saw it and immediately wanted to watch it again. There was a press screening of it on a Monday. It released on the Friday, and I was like, I will be there on Friday to watch this again. So I just completely loved it. I think the performances are fantastic. I hope that Mikey Madison gets an Oscar and all the awards and becomes a huge superstar, because she is incredible in this film. So yeah, Anora, I think, was the movie that, if I think about movies I've thought about that I've connected with that have really stuck with me this year, it's got to be Anora.
See, now I'm really beating myself up because I've been anticipating that movie for so long. I saw people talking about it early in the year because they saw it at a film festival, and I was like, just waiting. It came out, and it was in the theater for like 2.5 seconds. I completely missed it. And actually, it came back at a theater that was near me last night. It was at Alamo Drafthouse in LA. But it was like 8:30 p.m. and I had already committed to watch Interstellar with a friend at the theater. I should have just ditched him and just went and saw this, but I didn't. And now I'm going to make sure, if there's only a 10:30 showing, I'm going to go watch that movie now, because if it's your number 1 pick, it's got to be good. So I'm very disappointed in myself for not having that movie watched by the time we did this. Could just blow up my whole list. It could just ruin everything now.
How about you? What was your number 1?
Ooh, so my number 1. This one, the moment I saw it, I was like, yep, this is my number 1 movie. Much like you, I was like, yep, this is it for me. The movie was Dee Dee. And
I love that movie.
Oh man, I'm a sucker for a coming of age story. It gets me every single time. This one was so interesting just because it's set in California, although it's Northern California, so it's not where I grew up. And it's around the time I would have been the age of the main character. He's a little bit younger than I would have been. So I think they had in the movie they depict, he has a little more internet than I had when I was like 13 years old. So I had like the basics of internet, and he was like, on AIM and I think the early stages of Facebook. So that's probably like maybe like a 5 or 6 year difference. I can't remember what the time gap is, but it's like one of the first like modern-ish, or I guess closer to my childhood, coming of age movies I've seen. And I just connected with it so well. It's about this kid, and he's really trying to find himself, right? He has friends, but they don't really seem like they're his real friends, and he feels like he doesn't belong anywhere, and he's fighting with his family. And it was such a powerful depiction, I think, of being a kid. And it felt very similar to my childhood. And I was like, the moment that movie ended and I walked out the theater, I was like, yep, It was my favorite movie, and that was this summer, and it has not budged. It just stuck in that number one spot the entire time, and I can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a perfect portrayal of that time, that age where you're kind of like trying on identities to see like, what do I want to be? Who am I as a person? Like if somebody asks me like, you know, who are you? Am I like that dude that's into skateboarding? Am I like that dude that's into whatever? He's sort of figuring out who it is. And then I also really love it too, because the portrayal of his mom, I feel like, you know, a lot of the time in coming of age stories, the parents are in the background. They're kind of like, you know, not really part of it. And I really like that it's like, oh yeah, you also remember that your parents are people and they have ambitions and they have aspirations and they have dreams that maybe they are not pursuing or something. So I loved that it was kind of like him finding his identity, but also his mom kind of finding her identity. And they're both at this sort of transition period in their lives where they don't need each other in the same way. So now they can explore who they are apart from each other. I loved it. It's such a good film.
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up because, yeah, you're right. Like, parents are normally very one-dimensional in these types of stories, and they do a great job of fleshing out the whole family in this movie.
Totally.
Can't say enough good things about it. Okay, we went through our top three, and I had my honorable mention there at the at the start. But was there any other movie that you wanted to throw out there that you loved, and it was like, oh, it was so hard not to have it in your top three?
I feel like so many. I'm like, I still loved Challengers. I love Dune Part 2. There's a whole bunch of films that I think are going to make my like top 10 or top 20 list, but those are the ones that I think like really connected with me. And then sort of honorable mention, I guess, for me would be the documentary Casa Bonita Mi Amor. But I feel like that's one of those ones where it's like it works for me on a level that is like so far beyond. Like maybe it won't work for everybody, but as like a hardcore South Park fan, as someone in Denver who's been to Casa Bonita a bunch of times, I'm like, this documentary was just like every single thing for me. So to me, it's like, really, that's probably my number one movie of the year, but like, that's for me, you know?
Right? Sometimes it's just something that happens that you're like, this is just so personal. It just hits on so many personal levels that, look, it's going to be high. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. This is perfect for me.
Exactly. I'm like, it's one that probably like people are not going to watch. It's on Paramount Plus if people want to watch it. But I'm like, this is like my just for me favorite one.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to have those. Okay, perfect. All right. So we're throwing that in there as well for if you happen to love South Park and live in Denver. No, but I'm sure other people would like this too. But throw that on your list too as well to check that out.
Absolutely.
But Alexis, I always love doing these episodes. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your list, giving your recommendations. I think hopefully this will give people, you know, as they're wrapping up the year with some free time, hopefully they can have some movie recommendations to go check out. This is what you do. So if people want to know more about your favorite picks, where can they go see some of your content, see some of your reviews, and find some more things that they should watch?
Well, I'm Trashwire across all the different socials. I'm on Letterboxd. You can find all the things I'm watching there, see my ratings. I put like little kind of quick reviews for some things. I put links to my full YouTube reviews. I have the What You Watchin' podcast where I kind of go in depth about things. I did one all about Anora with my friend Alexis Taliopoulos, where we basically just both talked about how much we love that movie. So I'm sort of all across the places, and I'm just on Blue Sky at this point. Blue Sky and Threads.
I'm also over on Blue Sky, the other place. Get out of here. But I will put links to all your social handles, all your YouTube channel, your podcast, all that in the show notes. If anyone wants to go check that out, they can easily go get to it. So thank you so much for joining me, and you'll be back because we're going to be going over, we're going to split it up into separate episodes this time around, have our own categories that we went over. Kind of like an update on what we did in the summer, but also a couple of extra new things in there that we're doing. So stick around for that. That'll be coming out soon. But Alexis, thanks so much for joining me, and I guess I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much, and I can't wait to tell we return for the next part of this.